Hi there, welcome to our panel session on when will DeFi become resilient enough for mainstream adoption. Really happy to have you all join us and have 4 amazing panelists for this session. My name is Samantha Yap. I'm the founder of Yap Global, a PR agency with a focus on helping fintech, blockchain and cryptocurrency companies tell their story. We work with a few DeFi projects as well, and we have to keep watch of the trends and what's happening in the space. And so really excited to delve into this discussion. To begin, maybe I'll just do a quick intro of everyone so that we can save time and get straight into it. So on the panel today, we have Jose Macedo, partner at Delphi Digital. Delphi Digital began with one simple mission, that is to build the best institutional grade research firm focused exclusively on crypto and digital assets. We also have Asaf Naim, co-founder and CEO of Kirobo, an Israeli startup with an ambitious goal to protect crypto users from human error. And look forward to hearing more about the switch off button or undo button for crypto transactions that you'll share soon. We've got Evgeny, co-founder and CEO of Zerion, an all-in-one interface that lets you track and manage your entire DeFi portfolio. And Greg Lang, Chief Everything Officer of Rivet, the world's best cloud-based Ethereum and Ethereum Classic Node infrastructure service. So welcome all of you. So to begin with, DeFi has exploded this year. Yield farming craze happened. There's more than $11 billion now in locked value, and the governance token phenomenon also took off this year. So with such a rapid pace of development, is this all sustainable?
So let me take that then. So I think that, first of all, DeFi was, I think we can always talk about the productivity growth and the actual hype around this stuff. So I think over the last year, the productivity growth was amazing. And we've seen that in the number of new protocols and kind of money Legos in the DeFi space being developed. But I think only recently this started to, the curve of adoption and hype started to kind of grow faster than the productivity. So I think in the recent months, this was definitely not sustainable, looking at the number of kind of like forks of, let's say, Unisawp, like sushi tokens and all the food tokens. And I think that's overall that is not going to stay for long. But I think it brought us to this level of productivity that is going to continue to evolve and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think yield farming does bring back, and all the food coin craze does bring back some sort of like ICO days trauma for people who live through it, but I do think it's fundamentally different. I mean, the similarity is that ultimately yields were sustained by the same thing as returns in the ICO days, which is speculation, right? There's someone buying the food token that's pricing in the yield. But I think that the cool thing about yield farming, and what in my opinion makes it quite different, is that it's found a way to transform what kind of has always been crypto's killer app, which is speculation, into fundamentals, right? Like what we've seen is that yield farming has led to stuff that would have been considered inconceivable a few months ago. Like I can get better execution on a DEX right now than I can on a centralized exchange for stable coins and also on Unisawp for certain pairs. So I think that's what's really cool about yield farming for me. And I think that idea is around to stay. The idea of rewarding ecosystem participants, using that to bootstrap a supply side and to offer much better like actual fundamentals to users.
Yeah, to just stack on top of what Jose said, I think the key here is the ideas are what are going to continue to grow. Right, you're going to have people execute things well. You're going to have people execute things poorly, and depending on which one of those you are, your specific project might not still be around, but these ideas are going to retain their power. I think one way or the other.
I think that we see a lot of this in the next month. The key point, the shifting point, in my opinion, is if will be ecosystem that is sustainable. So if if it's going to be yield farming that people, you know, buy staking mechanism and then dump the coin and all the other participate run away, it's not going to be sustainable. It's going to be the new ICO phase. But if we build a product that, for example, will ensure, for example, staking to as long as the product is living. So, for example, if someone pay for a certain certain aspect of the system, and the payment go to the people that do the staking, I think because they are performing an action, it doesn't matter. I don't want to go into details. This is something that we plan to do. So basically, this will be something that can go for years and will eventually will create a sustainable system.
Cool. So I guess what I'm hearing is the technology is here to stay. Projects may come and go, or there may be like good projects that will be sustainable, but we're kind of growing in the next direction, in the right direction. But just to challenge this discussion a bit, you know, in reality, do we even need DeFi to be adopted by the mainstream? I mean, what problems does it really solve for the average man?
Well, for my, sorry, I'll let someone else take that one if you want.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, from my perspective, we're still at the infrastructure phase of DeFi, where it's being used more in the back end than in the front end. And I think ultimately the value proposition for DeFi is doing to finance what the internet did to data, right? Transforming financial primitives into these money Legos and creating an open ecosystem where anyone can combine them to create stuff that's completely new. I think we're kind of at the early phase of this, but I think similar to the internet, these new token-based business models are going to collapse the cost of financial services and also make them accessible to a much broader swath of people, and also create entirely new kind of use cases. I think we're still at the phase of the internet where we're kind of like putting the letter online and doing email. I think as those primitives get built out, we'll start to see new things that couldn't be done before. I think we arguably already have some. AMMs are completely new. Flash loans are something that's completely new. And I think as we combine these applications, we'll have more and more new stuff. And I think it's worth remembering that sort of DeFi right now, I think that the total market cap of DeFi is around 10 billion. You know, in comparison, if you take some of these inactive layer ones like Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, Litecoin, EOS, Cardano, you know, it's about 3 or 4 times that. So, and if you take consumer finance, it's a 2.3 trillion market. So for me, it's important to keep in perspective just how early we are if this is to be what we all believe it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, there's an immense power in the democratization element. I think there's definitely some huge value to be had by just, you know, regular folks who want to, you know, ultimately understand the specifics of how their resources and their wealth is managed and handled. To get us to a point where we can do that is really a lot of hard groundwork on the parts of the teams that are building these things. You know, whether it's making sure that you have high availability infrastructure, that people can, you know, get to the things that they use to trade with, whether it's handling gas fees, whether it's having good UX metaphors that you know, that don't obfuscate what people are trying to do and communicates the risk appropriately. I think that's where it's really going to be, you know, can we give it to them as opposed to do they want it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, Greg said. From taking it from like a different perspective, I think looking at the DeFi space and on overall the crypto ecosystem, it's always been a bottom-up process, and I don't think that mainstream adoption is going to just like suddenly come from somewhere else. I think as Greg said, we need to do a lot of groundwork to make this really happen, to make the infrastructure ready for more and more people, and we should take it step by step. So we started with just like layer 1 solutions like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and now we're building on top of that, creating more and more financial primitives and kind of money Legos that work and they are resilient. to support more and more people, but we should test that and like slowly grow this ecosystem rather than trying to jump ahead to like millions of people and like every other person using it left and right.
I think that to answer your question, if people needs DeFi, so we all know that blockchain doesn't have support system, right? Nobody can help you if you made a mistake or if you made anything. And DeFi is the future in that sense. It's basically will allow eventually the Bitcoin to become like a banking system without all the clerk that will help you to do stuff. You basically can do whatever you want on the blockchain, and you have the same security and reliability as the bank system today. So this is my vision. This is our vision in Kirobo. And I think that a lot of people will connect to that vision. So you ask me if people need that. Yes, they need it. I'm not sure that they know that they need that, but they will understand eventually.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you raise in terms of like DeFi has been a leap to mass adoption of crypto, but I guess there's still a while to go in terms of the applications and making sure they're like friendly, easy to use, and also that people are if they make a wrong transaction that they can undo it, which is hopefully what you're building as well. But right now, all of you have kind of said we're still in the early days. I mean, we've seen several issues at the moment with as DeFi grows, with investors losing money, protocols bootstrapping code, and experiencing bugs, manipulation of projects, and oracles. So what apart from the tech is the biggest barrier to mass adoption or the journey towards it at the moment?
I think that first of all, the tech is you said apart from the tech, but the tech himself it's a huge obstacle, because in early days when in 2017 in the ICO phase, so people rely on the smart contract because it's the same smart contract that duplicate thousands of times and people check them. The same go with DeFi today, for example, staking. It's the same smart contract that everyone used, and this is why everyone rely on this smart contract. But what happened when a new functionality adds to this smart contract? And this is the barrier that people needs to understand, that we have to go through in order to people to rely on that. So I mentioned that in the waiting room, we, for example, reinvented the smart contract and basically build this a smart contract that is have failure. Basically, you cannot mess it up. So, for example, if you upgrade the smart contract, or if you do a certain aspect, the money is always accessible, and you cannot destroy the critical data. So this is the first obstacle. The second obstacle, I think it's the blockchain obstacle of the UI and UX. So you need to build it, for example, if you go to the market today and you ask 10 people, maybe 1 or 2 hold crypto. And if you ask 10 people that hold crypto, how many use a DeFi product? So you see that it's the same number, maybe 1 or 2. Even us, when we issue the staking mechanism, we need to issue a video to explain to people that hold crypto like 3 or 4 years now, how to do a simple staking. It's not an easy process. You need to go to Unisawp to buy token, to put to a different token in Ether, get the LP, and then put it inside the smart contract to do the staking. So we try to do it very, very straightforward, but it's not easy task to do. And I think this is the obstacle that we need to overcome.
Yeah, I would agree. I think UX is definitely an obstacle. I think one really important part of all this is insurance as sort of a core primitive. I mean, full disclosure, we're investors in Nexus Mutual, but we think what they're doing is really important for the space in terms of actually offering smart contract insurance. And we're also seeing people like Av, like Bundle, sort of smart contract insurance into an NFT with their yield tokens. Then you can have sort of insured yield. And I think, you know, the same mechanism through which Nexus has done smart contract insurance will also allow it to one day do sort of Oracle manipulation insurance and protect from other risks in the space. I think that infrastructure is really key. And then I think aggregators like Zerion and Zapper and DBank play probably the most important role in terms of being really the front end of DeFi, right? I think those are the neobanks that are sort of putting together all the infrastructure that's being built, putting it into a digestible, like, you know, sexy format that people can use. And I think that's going to be like, for me, when I use an app like that, I already feel like I'm using an enhanced bank, you know, and obviously the UX is still not there, but you can see the beginnings of it. I mean, if you use DeFi over the last few months, you've had one or two magic moments with it where you're like, damn, you know, this is pretty cool. And I really think the aggregators play a key role in that as the infrastructure develops, really delivering that to people.
Yeah, just wanted to build on top of that. So we are at Zero and are actually doing a lot of the UX work. And this is like, I think we spent a lot of time on designing new features and how to present that to the users such that it's obvious, such that it makes sense, and how and people feel safe when making transactions, when seeing and trusting the numbers they see in the interface. And recently, I think like we were also faced with a lot of challenges because the number of protocols, the number of tokens grew so fast, we weren't able to keep up with everything that's going on. So we are taking security and safety of our users seriously. And I think that is one of the big obstacles. So people just don't know what is the difference between one token or another. What's the, like, they don't know how much phishing is going on, how much scam is going on. So I think that is all, as Jose mentioned, is very important, and it's part of our task as an aggregator in the space, as a front end to DeFi, to serve the users and to be the trusted place where they can find, you know, everything that was verified and checked beforehand, at least somehow, and insured potentially.
Yeah. Well, and dovetailing on the whole UX conversation, you know, a major part of user experience is outward communication, right? And we're all really well versed in the lingo of the things we build, to the point where we can just, you know, slip into jargon and talk about yield farming and talk about, you know, smart contracts, and we weave in and out of them seamlessly. And folks who aren't part of that, who are part of the mainstream, aren't going to be able to follow those conversations. And, you know, if we don't also put forward a communication front that can speak to the language of people who don't have that inherent understanding of all the folks who've been building this for years and years and years, then we are going to leave that narrative open to be built by the folks who would prefer that you know, their buddies in centralized finance do not lose their positions of power and trust and authority. So we're kind of, you know, we don't just have to figure out how to speak that language. We have to figure out how to speak it better than guys who've been doing that for years and years and years. And that is, to me, the biggest challenge to mass adoption and biggest barrier. So until we can outspeak Goldman Sachs and make people actually believe it, we're going to be fighting for an expert fringe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If I may add, I'm going to tell you something that it's quite embarrassing. Basically, we invented the undo button for Bitcoin. It's already working, and this is the only way that we send Bitcoin today. You know, once you use that, you will never want to do any other way. But Ether, we are working on that. We hope to release the next month the Ether version. And 4 days ago, we sent 3 million tokens to an address that someone gave us the address, and this address turned to be smart contract that doesn't know how to operate with our token, and basically the money is lost. So it's 3 million tokens that lost. And when the Ether version will be ready, hopefully next month, this thing will not be able to happen. And guys, I'm in the space a long time, and if I made this mistake, I think everyone can do that mistake, and and I think it's very important.
Yeah, thank you for like admitting that as well and sharing that with us, because I think people are still making mistakes, and you do hear of like really silly mistakes in the space. And especially as all of you are more well-versed and understand it, and you understand the tech. And if that's still happening today, yeah, it shows just how early we are in the space. And I also think just, I listened to a roundtable discussion on DEXs and how actually, while DEXs are open to having, basically sharing about security and going, it's secure, you can self-custody your assets. I guess the traders, they're more that there are different risk levels, and people, they were saying, don't care so much about security. They just want to take more risks with more liquidity. And so that's something to note as well in terms of the community, where the intention is at the moment. But let's talk about the scaling. So how does news that ETH 2.0 scaling is still years away impact DeFi? Where will we see more innovations and other solutions?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, in a way, it's kind of welcome, right? It gives us all a chance to shore things up more and to innovate with the tools that we have. If we all of a sudden had all of this, all this throughput that we could play with, we wouldn't be being as economical as we could be with the capabilities we have now. And I think that is a huge opportunity for all of us to maximize the way we use the resources we have at our disposal at the moment, and not rush into, oh, who cares? We can just throw more bandwidth or more compute or more whatever at it. It's not the way this is going to scale responsibly. That goes back to some of the mistakes that were made during the Web 1 days. And just to touch back on something Jose said earlier, there's something like, how much is locked up in DeFi right now? Just over 8 billion or 10 billion?
10 billion.
Just over 10, right? Circa 2017, the entire finance market was, or entire global banking market was something like 7.9 trillion, right? If we can learn not to make unforced errors with the limited tools we have now, when that kind of attack, that kind of horde is available to folks who might try to subvert the system later, right? There's going to be a lot of pressure from outside nefarious actors to try to make us make forced errors. And right now we kind of have the luxury of a smaller pool to play with, so that it's very easy to make it too expensive to attack this network. But that's not always going to be the case, especially if we get to a mass adoption point. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to get some things right before we get to play with a larger playing field.
Good point.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to look at it. I think it's also pretty sort of bullish for these layer 2 solutions that are coming up. We're pretty optimistic on the optimistic stuff and on some of the rollup stuff as well. We're doing actually a deep dive report into layer 2s right now, just to look at the state of things. It's kind of a notoriously difficult area to predict and invest in. We've kind of been talking about layer 2 for a long time, but we're definitely interested in that. We're also I think it's super interesting to see what Polkadot's doing, what Solana's doing, bootstrapping an ecosystem, especially with sort of Serum and Alameda behind them now. It'll be interesting to see, because it's kind of a DeFi focused ecosystem. I think both of those will provide solutions. I think one sort of interesting drawback of the ETH scalability issues is that we are, to an extent, the constraint is affecting what is built. So for instance, an AMM is arguably an invention that came about because of the constraints in ETH scalability, and the fact that it's the only exchange architecture that works on something like ETH. And it's is that actually the best way to transact on a system at scale? Because to some extent, and I don't know the answer to this, but there's sort of a reason that all of traditional finance has worked on an order book, architecture. And so that's one of my worries sometimes, is that are we building, are we sort of building around this constraint that doesn't necessarily need to exist and won't exist forever?
But I think that's, I agree, first of all. Yeah, I'm also pretty optimistic about all the rollups, essentially, and pretty excited. We're also looking into them in terms of serving the users better, because I think gas cost is one of the biggest constraints to mass adoption. So talking about yes, like I really enjoy the experiments that are going on within the Rollups space, and I think just to kind of like, yeah, the news about ETH 2.0, and it's kind of like always delayed, so it's not news anymore. But on the Rollup side, I've seen a few, like there are a few protocols and products that are already operational. And for instance, like ZK Sync supports transfers, and it works quite well. And like I think they do about 1,000 TPS at least. Like they can go up to that. And optimistic rollups and like Unisawp, for instance, is experimenting with that. And I think Wearn is also planning to launch a game using that. So all of these things are pretty, I think, almost ready. And I think in the next 6 months we're going to see more and more live solutions. And yeah, Loopring as well is doing already live trading. So it's not like years away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, super interesting. And so moving on to more like, back to, I guess, mainstream adoption in terms of institutions coming in. So how big a role will or are institutions playing in mainstream adoption of DeFi at the moment? I guess maybe Jose, you may be better to speak about this. If institutions are actually playing a role, or when they will come in to the space.
Yeah, I mean, we're still not seeing like kind of traditional financial institutions. I mean, we do have a lot of interest from them. We do conferences, we kind of speak at conferences, but in terms of like clients and people who are investing in the space, we're definitely seeing a lot more family offices, a lot more like private investors. Obviously, crypto funds has always been our main niche, and we're seeing more and more of those pop up. But we're definitely seeing some more interest from traditional financial space. But I'd say more the private investor and family office side of things. I think a lot of people, in the traditional finance space actually tend to understand the potential for DeFi pretty quickly. They tend to understand the kind of the primitives pretty quickly. In our experience, most of the people that we talk to are just kind of flabbergasted by the pace of innovation of what's going on and the composability and stuff like that. But yeah, we're definitely seeing more, but no kind of big traditional financial institutions yet, other than sort of exploratory curiosity interest.
Yeah,
but I can speak. Sorry, I can speak on my experience. We met with two very large banks that interested in this area. We actually have like 6 or 7 meetings with them in order to embed our technology, and the undo button is not related to smart contract or something like that. So they're really keen to understand that. I don't think that on the DeFi aspect they are ready yet. I think they will purchase companies in maybe 1 or 2 years from now. This is the stage that we will see them go in, but they will not put their hands before that.
Right.
But on technology that works like undo,
Yeah.
I hope that we can announce soon.
Well, we're almost running out of time. And just to wrap up, I guess I'll ask one quick question and each of you can jump in with a yes or no. But on that question, will CeFi and DeFi coexist? Yes or no?
I think they can coexist for a while. I think there's going to be some important bridges. Obviously, you have fiat currency being an important thing for people to get out of this when it's all said and done. I also think DAOs are going to play an important part in building bridge. Just tossing the plug for Prime DAO real fast. These folks are working on this very question we've been talking about today. And if you're interested in talking about this more and helping out, check them out. But yeah, I think there's definitely a place, at least in the beginning.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps up this session. So thank you very much for all of your time. And yeah, I hope all of you would, those of you viewers will, have a look at all their websites and follow them. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thanks very much, Samantha.